Hi guys, it's Chef Nick from the Fat Sparrow group. Today we're cooking our whole roasted cauliflower. Let's get started. What do we got inside our box here? Some beautiful fresh herbs, some vegan chocolate pudding, some berries, our cumin scented basmati rice, roasted garlic ginger sauce, almonds, red curry, purple cabbage, our whole head of cauliflower, our seasonings and vinaigrettes, peppers, apples, carrot, cucumber, and a lime. Awesome, let's get cooking. All right, let's get started. So the first thing that we did was preheated our oven to 425. I've got a pot, in a large pot here, just a little bit of water. There's about an inch of water in the bottom, and I've got a little bit of salt on that water. So now I'm just gonna clean up our cauliflower. So if there's any blemishes on the cauliflower, trim those off, and we're gonna take the bottom off just so it's able to sit flat later when we roast it in the pan. So that's super easy. The best thing to do is just get your knife in under the layer of leaves and kind of chop away at the core, and then it actually pops off in one easy piece there. So you've basically just taken your cauliflower and taken the bottom off of it, and any other leaves that are there you can pop off too, but really those are edible, they kind of look cool, and really all I wanted to accomplish was this thing sitting flat. Okay, so our cauliflower's trimmed up, our oven's preheated, our water's boiling away here. Like I said, we only have about an inch or less water in there. We're just trying to steam this. So now we'll take our head of cauliflower and just place it right in the water. Do that very carefully. If it drops in, it's gonna splash up on you. So my cauliflower is in. If you're nervous to do it with one hand, you could use 2 forks to just kind of stab the thing and place it in. So now our lid goes on. I'm gonna steam this for about 7 to 10 minutes. I'll test it with a knife just to make sure it's done on the way through. So while our cauliflower is steaming away, let's make the coating that's gonna go on it later. So we're gonna take our almonds here. We've got these nice slivered almonds. These are raw and unsalted. We're also gonna take our roasted garlic and ginger sauce. So this is roasted garlic, olive oil, and a little bit of raw ginger, just sort of whizzed up together. I've left it a little bit chunky because I like those chunks, and I'm gonna mix that right into our almonds. So now we'll just give that a nice mix to make sure our nuts are kind of coated by all of this nice oil, and then we can set that aside until we want to put it on our cauliflower later. Next, we're gonna get our salad started. So this is our veggie slaw, the fresh component of this dish. It's a really nice complement to all the other flavors. It's basically just cutting up a bunch of vegetables. You can cut these up however you feel comfortable with a knife. You can use a vegetable peeler to cut the carrot. I'm gonna use a knife and do a nice julienne. The first step though is to juice a lime. So we're gonna juice a lime into our bowl. That way as we add our vegetables to it, especially our apple, we won't get that oxidization, and the lime will start to kind of break the salad down and give us the nice texture that we're looking for. So little chef's trick, when you're gonna juice any citrus fruit, just take it and put it on a hard surface of any kind and just give it a little bit of a rub with the bottom of your hand. This will help crush all the different cells inside the lime and really release all those juice when we go to juice. We'll take a fork, stick it into our lime that we've now cut in half, and we just kind of squeeze it and twist it, squeeze it and twist it. There are fancy juicing devices that you could use for this, but I don't have one at home, so I just use a fork. So we have our lime juice. I'm gonna add a little bit of salt to that. The salt's also gonna help sort of pull moisture out of all these vegetables. So you'll notice that we start with just a little bit of liquid from the lime, but in the end we'll have quite a bit of liquid in the salad because of all the moisture that will come out of these veggies. So there that is. Now we'll just start processing all our vegetables. So I am gonna peel the apple and the carrot, and I'll leave everything else with their skin on, and I'm just gonna slice all this stuff up into an attractive manner and stick it in the bowl. So I'm just testing my cauliflower now. I take a knife, I put it into the heart of it. I do notice that the stem is a little bit chunky still, a little bit crunchy, so I'm gonna give it about 2 more minutes. So the only vegetable I'll bother explaining is the bell pepper. So the bell pepper can be a little bit tricky for people to cut sometimes. We'll make it super easy. So the first thing we wanna do is kind of make it square, because that's the biggest challenge, is that it's so round. So we cut these 2 things off. You can either eat these immediately, save them for salsa, save them for soup, but these are super good. There's nothing wrong with it. They're just gonna be ugly in my mix, so I don't wanna put them in there. So the next thing we do, we've got our pepper now kind of topped and bottomed. I just kind of cut into it, and then I just roll to to take off all of the seeds and as much of the membrane as I get in the first scoop. So all of this goes into the garbage now, or the compost. And then I'll just go in and continue to cut out any of these extra membranes that I don't want to have in my stuff. So now we have what we would call in the business a fillet of red pepper. We've taken off all the meat and the bones, the bones and the scrap as if this were a piece of fish, and we've reduced it to what we will then cook and eat with. So now it's super easy to cut. The only trick remaining to tell you is to cut it with the skin side down. The skin of a pepper is actually very hard and very hard on your knife. It will give you a pretty ugly cut. It will also take the edge off your knife pretty quickly. Now you can see it's pretty easy to just whiz through this and do really nice julienne. Okay, now the cauliflower is perfect. Now to get it out of the pot. Let's turn off our heat so we're not dealing with the extra steam. Get something nearby to rest it on. We want it to cool a little bit before we add our sauce. And my recommendation for getting it out is to actually just take 2 forks and pierce it in, get down to the core so you don't rip this thing in half, and then just pull it out and put it over here. Now I'm gonna let this sit for about 5 minutes just so that extreme heat will come off so that it's easier to make my coating stick to it. So let's set that aside. So now we've got all our veggies in our bowl. We've got that lime juice and salt in the bottom. It's just a matter of giving this a stir. So we're gonna season this again later once we taste it, but I want this to sit for about 10 or 15 minutes just to kind of break down a little bit, and that'll happen while the rest of our dish comes together. All right, so we're gonna crust our cauliflower now. It's had a minute or so to cool. You can see it's not exactly cool, but it'll work. At home, you may want to give it a few more minutes just to really give you a chance to get the spread on. My oven's hot, so I simply am going to try and get this as sort of stuck to the top and sides as I can, and then we're going to go in the oven. Okay, so as you can see, I've got it on there. I pretty much just stuck to the sort of northern hemisphere of this planet cauliflower because it's just going to fall off if I go around the sides and the bottom, and gravity will cook. As it cooks, gravity will pull that oil down and it'll help sort of season and coat the bottom of the cauliflower. I also did have to use my hands to sort of pack it on there like a snowman or a snowball, but we didn't want to show you that because these are ugly. So into the oven it goes. It's only going to take about 10 or 15 minutes. Remember, there's a lot of sugar in this now from the candied garlic, just the caramelization, and the nuts themselves, so we don't want it to burn, but we do want it to get nice and dark and caramelized because that's where all of our sort of meaty, earthy flavors are going to come from. So into the oven it goes. Okay, so while that's cooking, we're going to heat up our rice and our sauce. Super easy. We've got our pre-cooked cumin scented basmati rice. Into the pan it goes. And just use the same container, put a splash of water in and throw it on just to give it a steaming. Doesn't take much water, and it doesn't take rocket science. Next, we'll do our sauce. So into the pan it goes. This is our red curry coconut sauce. And we'll just plop a lid on our rice. Both these things are on medium-low. We're just trying to bring them up to temperature. You can handle that. Next, let's prepare our herbs. So this is for the cauliflower. I'm actually gonna mix it into the slaw. I just didn't want to do it too early because I don't want that to break down along with the vegetables. You can already see there's more liquid release now than there used to be. The vegetables are starting to look a little bit soft. They're kind of losing their hard edge. That's exactly where we want it to be. So at this point, I'm actually going to taste it. And if it needs more salt, I'm going to do it now. So it does, and in it goes. It's got a nice acidity from the lime, but it needed some help with the salt. So in that goes. Give that one more mix around. Then I'm going to pick all my herbs and I'm just going to leave them on top. And at the very end, we'll mix that together and then we'll plate it on top of our finished dish. With these herbs, I actually just want to pull them apart with my hands. I'm not going to even use a knife except for the green onion because I want nice big pieces of herbs. When we eat this dish, I want you to bite into basil at one step and then mint at another step. So we have basil, mint, cilantro, and green onions. All of those are going to go in here. All right, so we've got our vegetables. They're nice and sort of softened from that salt and that lime juice. As I promised, I was going to tear most of my herbs, and I sliced up the green onions, and I'm just going to plop those on top. We will mix those in later, but I'm going to do it at the absolute last second just so they keep their vibrancy and their freshness. So we can set that aside now, and we'll work on our berries for our dessert. I am gonna give my cutting board a quick clean so it doesn't taste like onions, and I'll be right back. We're just gonna prepare our berries. So for the strawberries, I'm just gonna take the bottoms off and give them a quick slice. The blueberries I'm gonna leave whole, and then we're just gonna put a bit of sugar and booze on them. Our booze is Grand Marnier. So I'll quickly trim these up and then we'll get to that step. So our berries are sliced. I'm gonna put a little bit of sugar on them. You can use as much or as little as you like. And we're gonna put a little bit of Grand Marnier on them. Whatever you don't use, just slurp it back. So then we're just gonna give this a quick mix and we'll allow this to sit. The same thing's gonna happen as our slaw. You've probably done this before, but the sugar's gonna pull out all this amazing liquid from the strawberries and we'll end up with this beautiful sauce. I'm all mixed here. You can still see there is some sugar in there that's not dissolved, but don't worry, that'll break down as this sits. So we'll just set this aside and we'll get to it later. All right, so our cauliflower is roasted. As you can see, the caramelization of the compote that we put on top, the almonds and the garlic, it's gotten really nice and dark and really nice and savory. The cauliflower itself is browned up a little bit too, which is gonna be lovely. It gives us that really sort of nutty, rich flavor that we've all come to love about cauliflower. So I'm gonna plate this on a large platter for a presentation piece. I love treating cauliflower like this because we kind of treat it like a turkey or a beautiful roast, and we bring it to the table whole, as opposed to, you know, a lot of vegetarian dishes aren't gonna give us this beautiful presentation. So we're just gonna carefully remove the cauliflower to another plate. So it's quite easy to pick up with a spatula, and I'm just using my hands. Again, use a fork if you're nervous about dropping it. So over to the plate it goes. And then I'm just gonna ladle some sauce onto that plate. And then I've just reserved a couple of our herbs from our picking of herbs. And we'll kind of place those on top. And then we're ready to present. So this is our roasted cauliflower dish. When we plate this up, we'll serve it with the rice and a little more sauce, but we're gonna carve this table side to get that beautiful presentation for that romantic evening.